There comes a time when the world feels a little quieter than it once did. Not because life has stopped moving, but because we no longer feel the need to keep up with every sound it makes. In earlier years, conversations often carried a certain edge. Words were chosen carefully, sometimes sharply. Being understood mattered. Being correct mattered. There was a sense that if we did not speak up, if we did not defend our view, something important might be lost. So we spoke, we explained, we argued, and often we carried those moments with us long after they ended. But as the years pass, something begins to soften. The urge to respond immediately fades. Silence no longer feels like defeat. It feels like space. Many people notice this change without naming it. They find themselves listening more and correcting less. They allow a conversation to pass without stepping into it, not because they have nothing to say, but because they no longer feel the weight of needing to say it. There is a quiet relief in that. A loosening in the chest, a sense that the day does not require quite so much effort. This shift does not arrive suddenly. It grows slowly, almost unnoticed, shaped by years of experience, by misunderstandings that resolve themselves without words, by arguments that proved unnecessary in hindsight, by moments when peace felt better than explanation. At this stage of life, there is often a deeper awareness of energy, of how limited it can feel, and how precious. Not every thought needs defending. Not every difference needs resolving. Some things can simply remain as they are. Sitting with that understanding can feel unfamiliar at first. The quiet may seem too open, but in time it becomes gentle. It offers rest. This is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about standing in it with less resistance, allowing moments to pass without grasping them, letting conversations end without needing the last word. For many, this becomes one of the quiet gifts of aging, a way of being that feels lighter, calmer, and more forgiving, not just toward others, but toward oneself. Here, in this slower space, there is room to breathe. There are moments that stay in the memory, not because of what was said, but because of how it felt afterward. A conversation that lingered in the mind, a disagreement replayed in quiet hours, words that could not be taken back, even when the room had gone still. In younger years, those moments felt important, necessary even. They were part of being engaged with life. Speaking up meant caring. Holding a position meant having conviction. And for a long time, that felt right. Looking back now, it becomes easier to see how much effort was involved. The tightening of the body during an argument, the alertness that followed, the way sleep came a little later on those nights. None of it seemed unusual at the time. It was simply how things were done. Age has a way of changing how these memories are held. The sharp edges soften. The details blur. What remains is not the point that was made, but the feeling that followed. Sometimes it is regret. Sometimes it is understanding. Often it is neither. Just a quiet recognition that the moment passed and life continued on its own terms. There is something humbling about that realization. So many conversations once felt decisive, as though everything depended on them. Yet time moved forward regardless. Relationships shifted in ways no argument could fully control. People grew closer or farther apart for reasons that had little to do with being right. With distance, patterns began to appear. The same disagreements returning in different forms. The same need to explain, to clarify, to be seen as reasonable. It becomes clear that much of this was not about the topic at hand, but about the human desire to be understood. Aging brings a certain honesty to these observations, not the kind that demands confession, but the kind that allows quiet acknowledgement. A sense that much of the struggle was shared, universal, and deeply human. There are memories of choosing silence instead, perhaps not at first, but later on. Letting a comment pass, allowing a conversation to end without correction. At the time, it may have felt incomplete. Now, it feels intact. Those moments often carry a different texture in the memory. They feel lighter, less charged. There is no lingering need to revisit them. They simply exist, settled and undisturbed. This shift does not mean becoming indifferent. Care is still there. Values remain. But they no longer need to be carried into every exchange. They can live quietly within, without requiring constant defense. Life, observed over many decades, reveals how often resolution arrives without force. Time smooths what argument cannot. Distance reframes what once felt urgent. Silence, surprisingly, does a great deal of work on its own. In these reflections, there is no clear dividing line between past and present. Memories overlap with current moments. A conversation from long ago echoes faintly in one from today. The difference is not in the situation, but in the internal response. There is more room now. Room to notice the tone of a voice rather than the words themselves. Room to sense when a conversation is finished, even if nothing has been resolved on the surface. Room to let things be. This is not something that announces itself. It is felt quietly in the body, in the breath. A subtle easing, a sense that life no longer requires constant explanation. And in that easing, memory begins to feel less like a record of battles and more like a long unfolding observation of being human. There is a particular kind of tiredness that does not come from the body. It comes from holding oneself steady in moments that ask for defense, from staying alert, ready to respond, ready to explain. Over time, that tiredness becomes familiar. It settles in quietly, long before it is noticed. Many people recognize it only in hindsight, a feeling that appears after a conversation has ended. The sense that something small has been spent, not enough to cause alarm, but enough to be felt. It is the cost of staying firm when firmness no longer feels necessary. With age, sensitivity to that cost increases. The body notices what the mind once ignored. The breath shortens more quickly. The shoulders tighten sooner. There is less patience for tension that leads nowhere. This awareness changes how moments are approached. Not all at once, and not deliberately. It simply happens. A comment passes without response. A disagreement fades before it forms. The choice is not made out of fear or avoidance, but out of recognition. Recognition that the feeling afterward matters more than the moment itself. There are memories of times when being right brought no satisfaction, when clarity arrived too late to matter, when the explanation landed, but the connection was already gone. Those moments stay quietly instructive, even if they are never spoken about. In contrast, there are memories of walking away without resolution, of leaving words unsaid. At the time, those moments may have felt unfinished. Now, they feel complete in a different way. They ended without strain, without residue. Aging brings a deeper trust in that feeling. The feeling of leaving a room with the body relaxed, of returning home without replaying the conversation, of sleeping without carrying someone else's words into the night. This does not mean that differences disappear. They remain as they always have. What changes is the need to carry them forward. They are allowed to exist without being carried. There is also a quiet shift in how other people are seen. Less as opponents, more as individuals moving through their own weight. Their words feel less personal. Their certainty less threatening. Their need to be right more understandable. This understanding does not require explanation. It lives in the pause between hearing and responding. In the space where a breath could become a reply, but does not. Life offers many such pauses in later years. Small openings where one can choose ease without naming it as a choice. The hands loosen. The jaw softens. The moment passes. These moments accumulate. They form a new rhythm. Conversations feel shorter, not because they are avoided, but because they reach their natural end more quickly. There is less circling, less proving, less weight. The feeling that remains is not triumph, it is relief. Relief that not every thought needs a voice, that not every difference needs a response, that peace can exist alongside disagreement without either one demanding the other's disappearance. In this way, emotional understanding deepens without effort. It is not learned, it is recognized. It grows from years of noticing what stays with us and what quietly falls away when we stop holding it. And so, without ceremony, life becomes gentler, not because the world has changed, but because the way we carry it has. Certain truths no longer arrive as realizations. They simply settle in. They are not announced. They are felt in the way the body responds to a moment, in the way attention rests or moves on. One of these quiet truths is how little most disagreements actually change. Time reveals this gently, not as a lesson, but as a pattern. So many moments once felt decisive, as though the future hinged on a single exchange. Now they appear smaller, not because they were meaningless, but because life proved larger than them. In the later chapters of life, there is a growing awareness of proportion, of what carries weight, and what only feels heavy in the moment. This awareness does not come from thinking it through. It comes from watching the same situations repeat themselves and noticing how often they resolve without intervention. There is also a soft understanding of the self, of how easily the need to be right can arise, how familiar that pull is. Age does not erase it, it simply makes it visible. Once seen, it loses some of its urgency. That visibility creates space, a space where reaction is no longer automatic, where there is time to feel the body's response before the words form. In that pause, something else often appears, a sense of ease, a recognition that nothing essential is at risk. This is not indifference. Care remains intact. Values remain clear. What changes is the method of holding them. They are no longer carried outward, ready for display. They are carried inward, quietly, without the need for confirmation. Over time, This way of holding becomes natural. The desire to explain fades, not out of withdrawal, but out of trust. Trust that what matters will endure without constant reinforcement. Trust that silence does not erase truth. There is a gentleness in this trust. It softens interactions. Conversations take on a different texture. They move more slowly. They end more easily. There is less effort to shape them into something precise. In these later years, attention often turns toward how moments feel rather than how they are framed. The tone of a voice, the space between words, the way a room settles after someone leaves. These details become more informative than any argument ever was. Wisdom, in this sense, does not instruct, it observes. It notices what brings rest and what brings strain. It remembers how often peace arrived when force was absent. This awareness does not demand consistency. There are still days when old habits return, when the impulse to correct or clarify rises. Age does not remove these impulses. It simply shortens their stay. They pass more quickly, leaving less behind. In the quiet that follows, there is no need to name what has changed. It is felt in the body's ease, in the breath that deepens without instruction, in the absence of tension where tension once lived. Life, viewed from this distance, feels less like a series of positions to defend and more like a long unfolding, a movement that continues regardless of commentary. And within that movement, peace is no longer something to be achieved. It is something that remains when effort falls away. As the day moves toward its quieter hours, there is often a noticeable softening in everything around us. Sounds settle. Light shifts. Even thoughts seem to lose their edges. Nothing needs to be held tightly anymore. In these moments, the body often knows before the mind does. The breath deepens on its own. The shoulders release without being asked. There is a sense of having arrived somewhere, even if no destination was ever named. Many people find that peace now comes less from understanding and more from allowing. Allowing a conversation to remain unfinished. Allowing another person to hold their own view. Allowing the moment to pass without shaping it. There is comfort in that allowance. A comfort that does not depend on agreement or clarity. It rests quietly, steady, and unobtrusive. Late in life, time feels different. Not faster or slower, but wider. There is room for pauses that once felt uncomfortable. Room for silence that no longer asks to be filled. Room for things to simply be as they are. In that space, the need to measure oneself against others fades. Comparison loses its grip. The urge to correct, to explain, to settle every difference grows faint. What remains is a gentle attention to the present moment, unburdened by the need to improve it. This way of being does not require effort. It arrives naturally when effort is no longer useful, when holding on feels heavier than letting go. Some evenings, this feeling lingers like the last light through a window, soft, unremarkable, and easily missed if one is not paying attention. Other times, it passes quickly, leaving only a trace. Both are enough. There is no need to name this experience, no need to define it or protect it. It comes and goes in its own way, like everything else. What matters is the ease it leaves behind, the quiet sense that nothing important is being lost by remaining still, that life continues to move forward even without commentary. And in that stillness, there is space. Not empty space, but open space. A place where peace does not have to be earned, and where being right quietly steps aside.